What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Wrestling with Johners. This is episode 23, and we've got Matt Bayliss back with us for this episode. So hi, Matt, welcome back.
Hi, John. How you doing?
Yeah, very good. So you may remember Matt, he guest hosted on last week's episode we did around NXT TakeOver Phoenix, and that was a really good episode. If you haven't caught that one yet, go back in the archives to listen to that one. You can catch it on all the usual podcast platforms, including YouTube, if you want to go out and catch that episode from last week. But that was a really fun episode and a really fun show to cover. This week we're going to cover WWE Worlds Collide, which was a tournament that was shown on YouTube, Facebook, and the main show was shown on the WWE Network this past weekend, and that was featuring superstars from NXT, NXT UK, and 205 Live. We'll go into a bit more detail with that very shortly. We'll also be covering off the halftime heat match that happened during halftime for Super Bowl Sunday, and we'll kind of cover off that match between those 6 NXT superstars a little bit later on. But first of all, back to you, Matt. So really happy to have you on board for this episode. I know the listeners really enjoyed when you were helping us cover NXT TakeOver Phoenix last week. Just want to find out a little bit about you, because hopefully we'll get to kind of have you as guest hosts more and more in the future. But we spoke last week about your wrestling fandom, when you first became interested in wrestling and what really hooked you. But I'm really fascinated to know your favourite wrestlers. So kind of growing up, who's your favourite wrestler? Who's kind of really influenced you and got you into wrestling? And who would you say are some of your favourites at the moment then, Matt?
So I think initially, I think sort of Bret Hart became my favourite from sort of like the early days of starting watching WWF at the time. And I was fortunate enough to meet him several years later on, which was pretty cool. And then sort of like the Attitude Era came along, so there's a lot to love during that time. Especially sort of the Austin and the Rock feud that went on for most of the Attitude Era.
Yeah.
And then the likes of Mick Foley, who's probably legitimately one of my heroes. I actually quoted him in my wedding speech, which went down well with me, and no one else really knew really about it.
What was the quote?
I tweeted him a few times, and I sort of said, what's the secret to a long and successful marriage, and basically he came back and said to me that the best thing to do is always admit that you're wrong, even when you know you're right. So
good advice.
That went to my wedding speech, and it's something that I live by to this day. So, and then I guess more recently, I still from maybe not recently, but from like WCW, like the likes of Jericho coming through that, and then coming into the WWE and doing what he's done, and still doing what he's doing now. He's someone that I'm a really big fan of.
Yeah.
But then, more up to date, the likes of Finn Balor, someone that I got to see as Prince Devitt in the UK a few times, is always impressive. I think I mentioned last week about my love for Pete Dunne.
Indeed, yeah.
I think it's whenever I see him on anything, you get that sense of pride, even though I had nothing at all to do with his success. It's still amazing to see him achieving what he is.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of the guys I follow more now are really the NXT guys, because I think they are the future. So if you think WrestleMania in 2 or 3 years' time, the 6 guys that are in the halftime heat match could very well be in the final few matches in Mania in a couple of years. So they definitely deserve to be, and hopefully that's the way things are going to progress for them.
Excellent. And final question before we look at the shows, Worlds Collide and halftime heat. What would stand out to you as being probably the best wrestling show you've been to? So it could be either quality-wise or entertainment-wise, or kind of a package of everything. What's the best wrestling show that you've been to, would you say?
I think that the best individual experience, I went to one of the Raw tapings in Birmingham a few years ago. I think we were 3rd row ringside behind the commentary desk. So, there's lots of people tagging me in photographs they were taking off Sky at the time, and then with my bit of fame. Unfortunately, I had a really dodgy handlebar moustache at the time for some reason. So, so fond memories whenever those pictures pop up, but then also great regret for the facial hair.
No, that's fantastic. Thanks, Matt. So, looking at Worlds Collide, so this was filmed over the Royal Rumble weekend. Now, usually you might be familiar with WrestleMania Access, and they've done fan fests for SummerSlam in the past as well. This time they decided to do, I think it was a 3-day access over Royal Rumble weekend. And over that weekend, they recorded the Worlds Collide tournament. So this is something they've been building up over the last few weeks. We got 5 superstars from NXT, 5 from NXT UK, and 5 from 205 Live that will be going up against one another in a knockout tournament, and the winner will get a championship opportunity at a kind of a bout of their choosing. And when I say a bout of their choosing, it's either going to be something NXT or NXT UK based, or maybe the Cruiserweight Championship. Now, the superstars involved for NXT, you had Adam Cole, Keith Lee, Shane Thorne, Velveteen Dream, and Dominic Dijakovic. I think I got that right. Yes, I think Mauro Ranallo would be proud of that pronunciation. From NXT UK, you had Zach Gibson, Tyler Bate, Jordan Devlin, Travis Banks, and Mark Andrews. And from 205 Live, you had Humberto Carrillo, Tony Nese, TJP, Drew Gulak, and Cedric Alexander. So lots of really top talent there. So I don't know how much you knew about Worlds Collide going into it before you saw any of it on the network. What were your thoughts kind of going into it? What were your thoughts about some of the talent? Any kind of individuals or matchups you were looking forward to?
Yeah, I think going into it, it was quite a unique concept that they were, it's really pushing those brands really, and bringing them into sort of like really under the spotlight. So I think it was good. I think they had a good mix of talent from each of the shows as well. It wasn't necessarily all sort of like, it wasn't the biggest names, and it certainly wasn't sort of nobodies that were just making up the numbers.
Yeah.
And I think realistically going into it, there was several people that could have won it. I don't think it was kind of like it was just there as a vehicle to put one person over.
Yeah.
And there's people like. Obviously Adam Cole's sort of like a well-known name, so he's probably one of the biggest names going into it.
Yeah.
But then Keith Lee, is phenomenal, and and it potentially suits him with being the bigger man. And
definitely.
So there was lots of potential going into it. So I was quite intrigued to watch, and I did my best to avoid spoilers between when it was taped and then when it was shown, and then when I actually watched it the next day. So
yeah.
I was really looking forward to watching it and seeing sort of like how they covered off everything, and it's a really fun show to watch as well.
Indeed. So as I mentioned at the beginning of this podcast, Worlds Collide was shown. Now, I think over last weekend it was shown on YouTube. They had like a 2-hour show where they aired most or all of the first round matches. But on the the WWE Network exclusive show this past weekend, they started off with a 15-man battle royal. So that's all 15 of the superstars I've just mentioned in an over-the-top battle royal, and it also determines who would be facing who in the first round matches. So, for example, the first 2 to be eliminated from the battle royal would face each other, and then the next 2 would face each other in the first round, and so on and so forth, leading to a winner, a 15th man left in the ring, the last man standing, who would get a bye from the first round, and that person's first match would be in the next round, which I think is the quarter-final. So, in the Battle Royal, I think the final 6 individuals in there were, let's see, Dijakovic, Keith Lee, Velveteen Dream, Jordan Devlin, TJP, and Tony Nese. So, as we get down to kind of the closing minutes of this Battle Royal, Dijakovic eliminated Keith Lee, which was a bit of a surprise, although it does show some positive signs that they're getting behind Dijakovic. He's got a great look. Once again, Keith Lee would have been an obvious choice to have done well in this Battle Royal, or to have done well in the tournament overall. But he kind of got eliminated towards the end here. Then Dijakovic got eliminated. The final 4 were down to Dream, Jordan Devlin, TJP, and Tony Nese. TJP got eliminated soon afterwards. Velveteen Dream then eliminated Nese. Dream almost goes over the top rope himself after clotheslining Nese out of the ring and nearly goes over to the floor himself. And then Jordan Devlin drop kicks Velveteen Dream out of the ring and winning the Battle Royal and getting the bye from the first round straight into the final 8. So quite an entertaining Battle Royal. It was fairly fast paced.
Yeah, I think it was it was probably just about the right length really. That being the start of a bigger tournament, I don't think they wanted it to drag out too long. But, it did set up a few potential little feuds, and obviously like Banks and Devlin carried on their ongoing feud from NXT UK.
Good point.
So it kind of it did some stuff for progressing the current stuff, and maybe hinting at some possible combinations going forwards as well.
Yeah. One of the first round matches they showed on the network show was Zach Gibson versus Humberto Carrillo. So this was the only first round match they showed on the network show. So it's definitely a clash of styles with Humberto Carrillo coming into prominence. I've covered him once or twice on NXT, and he's shown up on 205 Live as well. And Carrillo definitely that kind of lucha style. A little bit bigger than kind of your typical luchador, no mask as well. Definitely an up against Zach Gibson, typical British strong style wrestler. A lot more kind of ground moves, but quite a bit more of a hard, high impact wrestler. What's your thoughts on Zach Gibson? So you've seen a lot of British indie wrestling. Have you caught Zach Gibson in your travels, Matt?
Yeah, I've seen him a few times up in Hull with NGW. Also saw him with Hope Wrestling in Nottingham. Obviously, sort of, he plays the heel really well.
Yes.
And being as he's a Scouser, that's pretty easy fodder for giving him some abuse.
Gets a lot of crowd. He's an amazing promo as well, isn't he?
Yeah, and that's something he's certainly developed over the last few years as well.
Yeah,
he has got a really good look as well. He looks strong. He looks like a fighter. So
yeah,
I think he's definitely got a big upside going forward.
Definitely. So this was a fun match with a kind of a very spirited effort from Humberto Carrillo against the kind of larger heel opponent, and of course Zach Gibson, one of the new NXT UK Tag Team Champions, along with James Drake from NXT Takeover Blackpool. Humberto did actually pull out the win in the end. Now, the move that finished it was a top rope handstand Arabian press. So that's a bit of a mouthful, but a very impressive move for the win. A bit of a surprise victory as well. So obviously a competitor that NXT and WWE are getting behind and I'm quite interested in. They obviously enjoy his style. I've seen Carrillo, as I said, a few times on TV. I don't know if you've seen much of him. He seems to be a fairly newer wrestler, certainly on TV anyway. What do you think to Humberto Carrillo from this match and overall then, Matt?
Yeah, I think he's someone that's got an exciting future. Like you mentioned, he's a bit bigger than your standard luchador, but he can do all the luchador moves.
Yes.
So, I think it's someone that can potentially, bridge the gap a little bit. So, obviously he's on 205 at the moment. So, but then if he does potentially get a chance to go up to the main roster, much the same as what they're doing currently, he can go in there and take on, different competitors and different styles as well, which I think gives him a lot of opportunity going forwards.
Yeah, no, we covered one of his matches a few weeks back when he had a match on NXT against Johnny Gargano, and to be honest with you, that was one of the first times that I've seen Humberto Carrillo, and I know he's been on 205 Live since, but he really stood out to me in that match and again in this match, and definitely one to watch. So quite a good first round match here between Zach Gibson and Carrillo. Carrillo goes through to the next round. Now, they didn't show any more first-round matches on the network show, but I did catch one that a lot of people were talking about from their YouTube show, which was Tyler Bate versus Cedric Alexander. So I don't know if you went back and caught this, Matt, but this was highlighted especially as being probably the best first-round match between two exceptional wrestlers. And to be honest with you, it's a shame to have these two high caliber wrestlers in the first round where one of them would have to unfortunately go out. Were you able to catch this match between Tyler Bate and Cedric Alexander, or do you know much about it?
I only know that it was a really strong match. I haven't had a chance to go back and watch the first round matches yet.
Yeah.
But sort of on paper, it's the sort of match that that would stand out. If you saw that on a card, you would probably make sure you watch that match, and on a normal card that'd probably be towards the top end as well.
Yeah, definitely a mouth-watering tie, and I caught it this morning before this podcast started recording. I thoroughly enjoyed it. So just to cover off some of the key spots, Cedric applies an Indian Deathlock onto Bate to start the match. So that's a move you don't see very often. And Indian Deathlock was definitely a move that you probably saw more in the 70s and 80s. And I do remember when Triple H was Jean-Paul Levesque, or maybe even Terror Rising. That was his finishing manoeuvre back in WCW back in the early 90s. So I remember that one especially, and he was one of the last people I remember that used that move, getting on for 25 years ago. Plenty of quick fast-paced action in this match, plenty of quick transitions and exchanges between these two very talented wrestlers. Now, the first time I saw Tyler Bate was when me and you, we went to an Attack Pro Wrestling show in Bristol at the back end of 2014. Now, I'm sure you remember, Matt. It was just before Christmas, and it was a fantastic show. I'm pretty sure it was the end of 2014, and that was the first time I saw Tyler Bate. Now, bearing in mind that he's only 21 now, that would have made him about 16 or 17 at the time. Do you remember watching Tyler Bate back then, and kind of have you seen much of him on the indie circuit besides that match?
Yeah, I've been fortunate to see him quite a lot. I mean, the first time I saw him was when I was originally still in Birmingham, so it would have been before that show. He came out of the crowd to sort of do a bit of a beat down with Dan Maloney. So yeah, like you say, he was probably 15, 16.
Incredible, isn't it?
At the time, and even then he was he was well built, and I don't really like the big strong boy moniker because it sounds a bit odd, but it's about as accurate as you can get, really.
Yeah.
So I've seen him quite a bit and seen him sort of have some phenomenal matches on the UK scene.
Yeah.
And he's just going onwards and upwards now.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I say, you don't like the moniker Big Strong Boy, but he is probably pound for pound the strongest wrestler I've seen for a long, long time. He really is phenomenal. So the match picks up around the 10-minute mark where Tyler takes Cedric Alexander up into an airplane spin, only to drop him back down with a massive uppercut to the former Cruiserweight champion. Cedric manages to turn Tyler's slingshot clothesline into a Spanish fly for a 2 count, and that was a bit of an innovative spot. Usually Tyler Bate's very good at connecting with his slingshot clothesline, but Cedric caught him in a Spanish fly there for a 2 count. Tyler Bate eventually manages to finish the match on the 12-minute mark with his Tyler Driver 97. So that was a fun match, and like I say, a good way to kickstart the tournament for these two competitors. Like I say, it was shown on on YouTube. So if you want to go and catch that match, go to the WWE's page on YouTube, and you'll be able to find it there from their show from last weekend. But a really excellent match and a fun way to start the tournament. Like I say, it's just a shame to see one of those two excellent competitors going out so early. So looking at the rest of the first round brackets, you had Drew Gulak going over against Mark Andrews in another very entertaining match. We've mentioned about Humberto Carrillo going over against Zach Gibson. The Velveteen Dream, he kicked off his campaign in Worlds Collide Tournament against Tony Nese, going through against him. Adam Cole won a very entertaining match against Shane Thorne. Travis Banks, he lost out to Keith Lee in the first match there, and I think that was I did actually catch that match when it was shown on YouTube, and that was quite a hard-hitting, full-on match between those two, as you would expect. Keith Lee managed to go over in that match. Dominik Dijakovic won out against TJP in their first round encounter, and of course Tyler Bate, we've just mentioned his win against Cedric Alexander. So Jordan Devlin won the Battle Royal, as I mentioned earlier, and he got a bye through the first round. And his quarter-final or final eight opponent was Drew Gulak. So this was on the network show. Jordan Devlin, he's really, really impressed me over the last year or so. And I know certainly, since the 2017 United Kingdom Championship tournament at the Empress Ballroom in Blackpool, he had a bit of a kind of a turbulent few months where he was kind of deciding, what to do with his life. He wasn't happy with his career, wasn't happy with his wrestling style, and then things kind of turned around and eventually became OTT champion. And then he's got this kind of new aggressive heel personality with a very solid kind of a hybrid wrestling style with a lot of groundworks, a lot of stiff kicks. Some moonsaults added in there as well, so a bit of a hybrid wrestler. What's your thought on Jordan Devlin? Have you seen him much on the independent circuit? And what your thoughts before this match, specifically regarding Jordan Devlin going up against Drew Gulak, which is a bit of a mouth-watering tie?
Yeah, I mean, Jordan Devlin's someone that I'd not really known much about until quite recently, and then seeing what he's done, and obviously the UK Takeover show, the match against Finn Balor was a fantastic match, and a nice surprise match as well.
Yes.
And I think that match, and then what he does in this tournament as well is really good for him, and it's putting him into a really good position, potentially going forward. But again, the amount of talent in NXT and NXT UK, there's so many people going to be vying for the top spot that there's so much potential depending on how things go.
Yeah.
But I think he's definitely going to be, in that top echelon of talent.
Yeah, and the thing that I like about Jordan Devlin as well, I've already mentioned how I believe he can definitely do it in the ring. He's a bit of a hybrid wrestler, really catching people's attention with some good wins. Certainly in Progress, I've covered quite a few of his Progress shows. His match against Finn Balor, his outing here at the Worlds Collide tournament, but looking at Jordan Devlin, I mean, his character, I think he's really delivering on the mic as well. I think he's got that heel personality down to a T now. So I think he's becoming a bit of a total package. And I don't know whether his connections with Finn Balor will kind of do him any favours in the long run, but I think he's looking like somebody they can definitely push on NXT UK at the very least. Where do you think this guy's ceiling is in the company? Do you think he could be pushed on the main roster, or maybe NXT Full Sail? Do you think his ceiling is just purely NXT UK, or do you think he could go to bigger and better things from here? What do you think?
I think he could definitely progress. I mean, a lot of what he's doing on the mic as well, is making a big deal of being the best wrestler ever to come out of Ireland.
Yeah.
So, so that is kind of like stoking the fire with potentially doing something with Finn down the line.
Sure. Yeah.
There's a lot of potential there, and I think there's definitely a need for some of these guys to get the bigger exposure with NXT and or 205 and maybe going further than that as well. So
yeah,
there's a lot of the UK guys that I think, or I hope, in the next few years we're going to see a lot more of on a much bigger stage.
Yeah, I think talent-wise, a lot of the UK guys have definitely got the talent, the credentials to go up against anybody on the main roster. But it really comes down to kind of character and personality as to whether they'll kind of take that next leap up to the main roster. But I'm also a firm believer that with NXT and NXT UK, they are their own separate brands. They do need these individuals to stick around to make a success of these individual brands. So maybe it's not such a bad thing if the Jordan Devlins of this world kind of stick around for a bit longer to make a bigger name for themselves and a bigger name for NXT UK. But this time round he's up against Drew Gulak. So Drew Gulak, definitely more of a submission wrestler, definitely more ground-based, and probably one of the more talented wrestlers on the whole of the WWE roster. I know that he's been wrestling predominantly on the 205 Live brand. He's had quite a bit of character development over the last year or so. So I, for one, would like to see them do more with Drew Gulak. I'm not saying that he should be up on the main roster, but I think if he were to go up onto the main roster with his in-ring ability and I think his character development and his kind of his character work of late, I think he could be a good gimmick to have on the main roster. Have you seen much of Drew Gulak? I mean, are you a fan of his? What do you think of Mr. Gulak?
Yeah, I think he's a good solid wrestler. I remember seeing some stuff on DVD of his a long time ago, like wrestling in a really tiny little community hall in West Bromwich, I think it was.
Wow.
But yeah, so he's a good talent. I mean, this is one of those matches that I wouldn't necessarily have gone out of my way to watch. If you look at some of the other matchups, but then.
Yeah.
I did sit and watch it and really enjoyed the match. It's quite, it was well paced. There was a lot going on. And again, it's one of those matches that could have gone either way, and it did. It did keep your attention from start to finish.
Definitely. So some of the key spots from the match, Devlin manages to escape a Drew Lock, Dragon Sleeper, my apologies. And I do think Drew Gulak has one of the best Dragon Sleepers in the business. An excellent slingshot cutter from Devlin onto Gulak for a close near fall of his own. Devlin executes his ripcord backdrop suplex for a 2 count, and I absolutely love it when he does that move. Gulak manages to execute a reverse Scorpion Deathlock on Jordan Devlin, but Devlin eventually manages to get the win after 12 minutes with his Ireland's Call finisher. And an excellent wrestling match with Devlin going through to the semi-final. So a really fun match there. Looking at the brackets for the final 8 as it was. So we've already mentioned Jordan Devlin versus Drew Gulak and Devlin going through there. Then there was Humberto Carrillo versus the Velveteen Dream, with Velveteen Dream going through to the semi-final there to face Jordan Devlin. Adam Cole won over Keith Lee in his quarterfinal match, and Tyler Bate manages to beat the much bigger Dominik Dijakovic in their quarterfinal match. So the semi-finals looking like this. Jordan Devlin versus Velveteen Dream, and Adam Cole versus Tyler Bate. So certainly the match I'm looking forward to there, which we'll talk about next, is Adam Cole versus Tyler Bate. Definitely a mouth-watering tie between these two. Like I say, you talk about looking at matches on paper and some being more appealing than others. But when you kind of knew that this match was about to happen, you must have been pretty excited, Matt.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's sort of, I would have thought from the beginning, Adam Cole would be one of the favourites to win. So,
yeah,
going into this match, I kind of had the expectation that Adam Cole would win and progress. But if you look at Tyler's sort of route through the tournament as well, obviously, he went up against some big names and sort of like potentially overcame the odds, really, if you look at it that way.
Yeah.
But, there's bigger names potentially he was up against, and and this match was fantastic. Two like fantastic in-ring talents. And again, given the time to have a good match as well. It wasn't rushed.
Yeah.
There was plenty of time to build, plenty of time to tell a story throughout the match as well. And I absolutely loved this match.
Yeah, it was one of the standout matches from the whole tournament. Now, we've spoken quite a bit about Tyler Bate, both in our podcast from last week and already today. We haven't spoke much about Adam Cole. Now, I know that a lot of people are on the fence about Adam Cole. There's some criticism that about his size, that he just doesn't, quite have the full wrestling ability of some wrestlers. I don't know. I've kind of warmed to Adam Cole, and I didn't follow him much before he joined NXT, admittedly. But I do think he makes an excellent heel. I do think his wrestling style has grown on me. He does remind me very, very much of a very early 90s Shawn Michaels, to be honest with you. And I don't know if that's right or wrong of me to say that, but I think in terms of some of his moves, a little bit about his look and his mannerisms and the way that he sells and his gimmick overall is a little bit Shawn Michaels. And I might be wrong in saying this, but I do believe that Shawn Michaels is one of his early influences. What's your kind of thoughts on Adam Cole as a character, as a wrestler? What your thoughts on his kind of his future with WWE? I know that we spoke last week about Undisputed Era and their possible kind of as a faction going on to the main roster eventually. But Adam Cole individually, what do you think the future holds for him?
Yeah, I think he's got a ton of potential. He's someone I saw a little bit of him previously in like PWG. And he always impressed there in like a really wild environment. But yeah, I mean, I'm impressed with him. Particularly in the ring. His mic work and his character work as well is really good.
Yeah.
And again, he's someone that I think the similarities are there with sort of like with Shawn and sort of like that style of wrestler. So he's got the charisma that he could go forward. Whether it's as a heel or as a face.
Yeah.
He could be repackaged and and move forward as a singles wrestler. He's definitely got the talent to do it.
Yeah,
it's just being given the opportunity.
Yeah, definitely. So I think. Yes, if he's given the right opponent and the right storyline, I think he could be a massive hit. Like you say, he's got the character, he's got the in-ring ability, and definitely the presence on the mic to be a really top star on the main roster, or pretty much anywhere he goes. But I think we're very lucky to have him on NXT here. So it's a really fun match. Some of the key highlights from this match in particular. Cole nails Bate with a pump kick and then a fireman, kind of like a fireman buster, fireman neck breaker for a 2 count. So quite an innovative move there. Then Tyler Bate nails Cole with a deadlift German suplex for another 2 count. The match goes about 10 minutes and Tyler Bate wins the match. There's a kind of a bit of a build-up to the end here. The end of the match comes when Adam Cole lowers his knee pad for another Shining Wizard. Tyler Bate manages to duck the move and executes his slingshot clothesline, and then finally finishes the match with his Tyler Driver 97 for the 1-2-3. The match actually went 17 minutes. Like I say, they were given time to develop the match and to tell a bit of a story in the ring between two ultra-talented individuals. A really fun match and, like I say, a really good semi-final match with Tyler Bate going through to the final. And as you mentioned, you might consider Adam Cole to be the favourite going into this match, especially with his name value. But Tyler Bate, I think he's making a good name for himself as well. First ever WWE UK champion, as we know. Former NXT Tag Team Champion with Trent Seven. And I think this is an indicator that WWE are high on both wrestlers, but definitely Tyler Bate. And for Tyler Bate to go through to the final was definitely a good sign for him and for the NXT UK brand. What do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree. It's it's a good statement of intent for Tyler, really, that to go through. They mentioned in commentary, I think probably at the start of the show, I think, saying that Tyler's a good tournament wrestler. Obviously, we looking at the inaugural UK title tournament, and then his achievements in Worlds Collide as well. So
yeah,
so obviously watching space if there's any more tournaments coming. If they maybe bring back King of the Ring and do it properly, then Tyler's potentially a name that could get a really good push on something like that.
Definitely, that would be fun to see. So on to the second semi-final, Jordan Devlin versus Velveteen Dream. So the kind of the story of this match was the Velveteen Dream selling his rib injury from his previous round matches. So Devlin, of course, goes straight for the ribs, straight from the off, and Devlin manages to catch Dream off of a springboard maneuver, catching him with a Uranagi slam and his patented standing moonsault combo. So that was pretty good. As I mentioned, the story of the match was Dream selling his rib injury and Jordan Devlin going after the injury. Devlin goes for a sunset bomb to the outside, but it is blocked by Dream. Dream follows that up with an impressive moonsault from the ring apron to the outside. Devlin nearly gets a 3 count after a backstabber in the corner. Dream gets a close near fall from his Dream Over implant DDT, which was quite an impressive move there. A wicked headbutt and a ripcord backdrop driver from Devlin got a 2 count, and the end of the match comes when Devlin goes for a moonsault onto Velveteen Dream, only for Dream to bring up his knees, allowing him to nail his his Dream Valley driver, followed by a top rope elbow for the 1-2-3. The match went 10 minutes. It was a fun semi-final encounter. The Dream goes through to the final to face Tyler Bate, and another excellent match between these two fairly contrasting styles, contrasting wrestlers. And an excellent run in this tournament for Jordan Devlin. Like I say, he won the Battle Royal to kick it all off, got through to the semi-final. So, yes, like I say, a good run for Jordan Devlin, but the Velveteen Dream through to the final there against Tyler Bate, which we'll go straight into. So two of the most talented individuals in the wrestling world, and both in their early 20s. So as I mentioned earlier, we saw Tyler Bate 4 or 5 years ago when he was like 16 or 17. He's only 21 even now, and he's already achieved a lot, in his career, and especially since signing with the WWE. And the Velveteen Dream has only been in the business 2 or 3 years himself, and he's only 23. So kind of, the skill level that these two individuals have at the moment and the success that they've achieved so far, both in their early 20s, is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, if you've known anything like it regarding these two wrestlers at such an early age, I know we've spoken about Pete Dunne achieving a lot of success at such a young age, but Tyler Bate in Velveteen Dream, we talk about what's the future of the business, and these two here could be exactly that.
Yeah, definitely, and I think that's the beauty of NXT. It's created these opportunities where people can come through and have that higher exposure, and learn their way and everything before potentially getting onto the main roster. So I think in the past, people have had to sort of jump through hoops a lot more, and then they do get pushed onto the main roster and they're kind of out of their depth. So I think by having the opportunity for younger guys to come through and everything they're doing with the performance center as well, that it's not just getting them physically fit, it's getting them ready to be WWE superstars.
Yeah.
And I think these two and the likes of Pete are definitely like the blueprint really going forward of what can be achieved.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the story of this match very similar to Velveteen Dream's semi-final match. Tyler Bate is very calculating in his attack of the Velveteen Dream's ribs and midsection, with the Dream's ribs being taped up from his earlier injury. There's a huge backdrop spot here where Velveteen Dream sends Tyler Bate pretty much the entire length of the ring on that backdrop. That was very reminiscent of kind of when Rick Rude used to get backdropped halfway across the ring. Definitely sold that one really well. A huge, Dream then misses his purple Rainmaker, but hits his Dream Valley Driver instead for a close near fall. Bate nearly takes the win after connecting with his slingshot clothesline and a Tyler Driver 97, but couldn't quite get the pinfall on that attempt. The Velveteen Dream eventually wins the match with his purple rain maker, top rope elbow, and got the 1-2-3, and a great match between these two. I think we've spoken at length about how fun these two are, how great they are in the ring, both in their early 20s, both bright futures ahead of them. And the Velveteen Dream won this tournament, the Worlds Collide tournament, and he goes on to challenge a champion of his choosing, more than likely within an NXT brand. That's the end of this tournament. What was your overall thoughts on this tournament? I mean, there were some really good matches there. It was done within kind of like an NXT kind of access sort of environment. I felt that the look and the feel and the presentation was quite different to what you'd normally see for a WWE presentation. As a package overall, how did Worlds Collide stack up with you then, Matt?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think everything that's come out of NXT so far this year has been top notch, really.
Yeah.
And I think they acknowledge the fact that it was filmed over a couple of days and everything, and they changed the commentators around, so you had sort of representation from all the different brands, and I think that worked really well.
Yeah, I enjoyed that aspect, definitely. Yeah.
Rather than just having sort of like the one set of voices throughout the whole thing.
Yeah.
And people have different insight. I think Nigel McGuinness is fantastic as a commentator.
Yeah.
And especially with his knowledge and understanding of the UK guys in particular. But I think overall from a wrestling perspective, it was really strong. There weren't any squash matches. It wasn't anything that was a bit dubious or anything. If you think back to sort of like King of the Ring tournaments, there'll always be one where someone gets screwed out of the win or something's just really over really quickly. The one thing though is like with Velveteen Dream getting injured early on, that almost, in my mind, almost guaranteed he was going to win it.
Right.
Because, it's sort of like a usual story that someone like battles through and ends up victorious. I've got absolutely nothing against him winning it, and I think he's a sensational talent, and the matches that he had were really good, and even with the injury angle. But especially those final three matches, like the two semi-finals and the final match, were all really up there with some of the best matches I've seen recently. So especially in WWE anyway. So
yeah, definitely. I think if you were there Rumble weekend, not only did you see an excellent takeover and an excellent Royal Rumble, but if you caught any of the action from the Access shows over that weekend, I think you were spoilt for some really good wrestling action over that weekend. So
Finishing Move Limited, specialising in simple, stylish and versatile items to elevate your everyday. Check out their Instagram at Finishing Move Limited and find their elevated essentials range at finishingmovelimited.com.
We'll move on to Halftime Heat. So we covered this in the takeover episode that me and you did last week, where it was a... now, I think the original Halftime Heat show was 20 years ago. Am I right in saying that, Matt? And it was between the Mankind and The Rock, and it was an empty arena match. Now, am I right in saying that? I do remember the match, but I just want to get my facts right.
Yeah, 20 years sounds about right, I think.
Yeah, I think that's about right. I think that was during their kind of 99 feud. But this match didn't involve any main roster talent, or certainly they're not main roster talent at the moment. The 6 competitors, all exclusive to NXT. You had the 3 faces, Aleister Black, Ricochet, and the Velveteen Dream versus Adam Cole, Johnny Gargano, and Tommaso Ciampa. And this match kind of started after NXT TakeOver Phoenix, where the 6 wrestlers kind of eventually kind of ended up on stage, got into a bit of a brawl. The brawl continued backstage, and that set up this match here, which was taking place during the kind of halftime of the Super Bowl this past Sunday. So one thing that really pleased me when the presentation started We should had Vic Joseph on commentary, and I think Vic Joseph is one of the best commentators. You mentioned Nigel McGuinness earlier. I think Vic Joseph, who is his is sideman on NXT UK, but he was alongside Shawn Michaels, and I thought Shawn Michaels was really good on commentary here. He was really putting over the talent, and he said he was kind of nervous going into it, but I thought he did an excellent job on commentary. We don't get to hear Shawn Michaels on commentary too much. I know he had one or two spells during the 90s when he was kind of out injured or whatnot, but I quite enjoyed Shawn Michaels being on commentary here. Matt, what did you think?
Yeah, it's it's a refreshing change to have him doing it, obviously, because he's invested in sort of like working with the NXT guys, and you can tell that he's got a lot of respect for them and knows what they're doing, and I think I agree, he came across really well on commentary, and it's something I'd like to see or hear a lot more of going forward.
Yeah, maybe. And I know Shawn said about the Velveteen Dream that to compare the Velveteen Dream to himself, Shawn Michaels, was to limit Dream's ceiling because the Velveteen Dream is that damn good. And Shawn Michaels definitely putting over the talent, and he's very hands-on with the training and the development for a lot of the names, probably all of them, to be honest with you, because I think Shawn Michaels is involved in kind of like the finishing class within the Performance Center over in Florida. But the match starts with Johnny Gargano up against former North American champion Ricochet. And then kind of Aleister Black gets involved with Adam Cole, and Aleister Black is just a tour de force during this match. And I think all 6 individuals, they all had their share of the action. They all, got in their top moves. There was a nice spot where Ricochet moves Gargano under the arm of Tommaso Ciampa, and then Ricochet catches Ciampa with a neck breaker, bringing both Gargano and Ciampa down to the mat with kind of like an impromptu DDT type maneuver. So a 2-on-1 offense there from Ricochet. There was lots of innovation here. Springboard spinning back elbow from Ricochet onto Adam Cole. Ricochet gets a close 2 count with a standing moonsault on Adam Cole. Aleister Black drills Ciampa and Gargano with a series of stiff kicks before nailing a perfect springboard lion salt onto both Gargano and Ciampa. Adam Cole nailed Ricochet with a super kick in midair off of a moonsault. The Velveteen Dream suplexes Ciampa over the top rope with both guys tumbling to the floor on the outside, which was quite an exciting spot. There's a modified Canadian destroyer by Adam Cole. I think they called it the Panama Sunrise, which looked pretty cool on Ricochet there. That got a 2 count. There was a triple super kick from Ciampa, Gargano and Cole onto the kneeling Ricochet, who was kneeling prone in the centre of the ring. And Aleister Black made the save there before the 3 count. And the end of the match comes after Black takes Gargano out of the match with the Black Mass, sending him to the outside. He's no longer involved. Velveteen Dream then takes Ciampa out of the match with his Dream Valley driver, leaving just Adam Cole as the last heel standing in the ring. Black nails Cole with his Black Mass. Dream then hits another Dream Valley driver onto Cole, and Ricochet finishes with a springboard 450, hooks the leg and gets to 1-2-3. So this match had everything. The show in total was about 26 minutes. I think the match was a good 18 or 20 minutes of this, so a really fun match for that length of time. Really fast pace. I don't think there was much time for them to get much story or kind of selling involved, but I absolutely loved this match. And Matt, I want your opinion on it. You saw it just the same as I did. What did you think of Halftime Heat?
Yeah, I absolutely loved it. I think they did a bit of the build sort of like on social media beforehand, so they had little videos of all of them saying what they're going to do, what their intentions are. So I think they kind of negated the need for story, I think. And it was just 6 guys who wanted to beat the crap out of each other. So I'm an NFL fan, so I was watching the Super Bowl. And then as soon as the halftime came on, I put the network on and watched this. And it was by far and away the highlight of Super Bowl Sunday.
Better than Maroon 5.
Yeah, I muted the TV and switched the laptop. So
very good.
But yeah, I absolutely loved it. Obviously you've covered off a load of spots there, and it was just really entertaining. I think my favourite part was when all the faces. So Aleister Black did his fake dive to the outside and springboard back into sitting in the middle of the ring, and then Ricochet copied him, and then Dream followed up into his own version of it as well.
Yes.
And I just thought, that was just a really, really fun, fun part of the match.
Yeah.
and I think it went down really well with the crowd that were there watching it live as well. So yeah, but overall, it's like 6 of the top guys in NXT just going and really just tearing the house down and showing everyone what they're capable of.
Yeah, and I think that's really key because with this being NXT and not any main roster talent, this was an opportunity for some real great first-hand exposure of the NXT talent and the 6 names that we've mentioned, and with it being broadcast live on various platforms during the halftime of the Super Bowl. Now, there are some reports that only 86,000 people watched it live during the halftime period. Like I say, some great exposure for the WWE and for these individuals and for NXT as a brand in particular. But there were reports a day or so later that it's had nearly kind of 2 million views on various social media platforms, including YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, etc. So, it may not have been an immediate watch during halftime, but I think people have watched it and picked up on it and seen the match in the day or so leading. I know you saw it live, I didn't, so I wouldn't have been one of them 86,000 people that saw it live, but it's definitely got the attention of the kind of the wrestling community out there. And kind of my main question for you is, it was such an excellent match. The previous halftime heat was 20 years ago. Do you think it's something that they could capitalise on and maybe do every single year?
Potentially, yeah, but I think not having it every year kind of gives it the opportunity to be a bit more special.
True.
I think with the original one, it was it was built into the feud between The Rock and Mankind.
Yeah.
They wanted to fight all around an arena, so they gave them an empty arena to do it. I think the story with that one was it was pre-recorded and edited and everything before it went out. So. At least with this one, it was live. It had to stick to a limited time limit. And I think it ticks so many boxes. I think the actual live viewership's a bit disappointing, but I think people watching, especially in the UK, if people were trying to watch the Super Bowl, they may have nodded off by then. I know I was close because it wasn't the best game in the world, and I think in America, everyone has their traditions with Super Bowl Sunday.
Yeah, true.
But the fact that the viewership went up so much in the next couple of days was still a priority for people to watch it as soon as possible.
Definitely. Well, I really enjoyed the match. I thought it was fantastic, and it was one of the matches we just high spot after high spot after high spot, it was kind of one of those where when you thought the match couldn't get any better, then Ricochet came along and did one of his crazy manoeuvres, and that draws a close to this episode, Matt. So I want to thank you again for coming on board Wrestling with Johners, and this is your second episode. Hopefully we'll get you on board again sometime in the future, but thank you once again for coming down.
No problem. Well, thank you for inviting me back.
No, you're very welcome. So I hope that you've enjoyed this episode. If you did, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button, to shout about the podcast, tell your friends, tell your family. Keep listening to Wrestling with Johners for all of your weekly updates on NXT, NXT UK, WWE, and the occasional Progress Wrestling update. You can listen to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Podbean, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. We're out there. If you have any questions, you can get in touch by emailing the show, wrestlingwithjohners@gmail.com. You can also get in touch with our via our Twitter page, @withjohners_pod. We're now on Instagram, @wrestlingwithjohners. So we're kind of out there on all the platforms. Please get in touch. We'd love to hear from you. If you have any feedback about the show, how we can make it better, or any shows you want us to review, or any guests you want us to get on board, we'll certainly listen to your feedback and your thoughts on that. But that's pretty much it. All that's left for me to say is thank you very much for listening, and we'll speak to you all soon.